Make it.
Okay, what's going on, Kristen?
I'm just here sporting my Cape Breton sweater.
Cape Breton crew.
In honor of our Cape Breton guest today.
Mr. Frank MacDonald, the legendary Frank MacDonald from my hometown of Inverness. Legendary author, multiple books he has out. His book, A Forest for Calum, celebrating 20 years and being re-released under the Nimbus Classics banner. Frank's just a great guy, a friend of the family, a friend of the entire community of Inverness, and someone who has captured the stories of Cape Breton in so many different ways in his writing, his weekly column in the Inverness Oran. Just someone who I've always looked up to as a mentor, as a hero, really.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who inspired me, seeing someone from a small town, my hometown, have that success, and just be someone who you could lean on for advice or just to talk to, a friendly person to encounter in the streets growing up or later in life. When I started doing some writing, I'd chat with Frank about it, and just a genuinely good human being.
You have spoken about Frank in this light since you and I met 15 years ago. You've always seen him through that lens. And as I've come to know other community members of Inverness, you realize that this is consistent. This is everyone's impression of him and of his late wife, Virginia, who both of them were ambassadors and representatives of both Inverness, but of creativity. They had that reputation for highlighting other voices locally, and to see Frank celebrated in this way for the 20-year anniversary of but one of his novels, and we have both copies here.
Yeah.
So, okay, can we see them better this way?
Yeah.
So this was the original.
Yeah.
And this is the 20th anniversary edition, A Forest for Calum, with a foreword by Tom Ryan, your cousin.
My cousin, former guest, yeah.
And Virginia's artwork.
Virginia McCoy, Frank's wife's artwork on the cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I just double-checked here. I've got my laptop to the right. The 20th anniversary celebration is at the Inverness County Centre for the Arts tomorrow. So if you're listening to this on release day on Wednesday, tomorrow, October 16th from 6:30 to 8:30 will be the opening night of that recognition for Frank.
And if it's past that date in the future, this is still an incredible conversation.
Yeah.
We talk so much about just storytelling and keeping alive the stories off the people of a small town, and how it's passed down generation to generation, and what that means to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very powerful episode, and Frank is 80 now, and he sees, I guess, us and people our age as the next generation carrying the torch, and it's amazing that we got to learn from someone like him. We have all that he's put out into the world, and we have this conversation now.
Mm-hmm. He's someone who's been on our wish list for guests for quite some time, and we just so happened to be in your hometown this past weekend for Thanksgiving, and we took all of our gear and was able to do the interview in his home. And I think being immersed in his environment too kind of gives explanation to some of his personality and history. He's surrounded by other stories. So he's kind of living in this world day to day that he's expressing himself through.
Yeah, I think this Frank and this episode and just everything he represents is an ode to stories and keeping them alive, and the memories of the people around you, and how that can impact so many people.
Mm-hmm. It was also really special for me to watch you have this conversation with Frank, knowing how much you have admired him throughout your life as a young artist. And I just thought you did such a great job at honoring him and being articulate and asking your questions. And it was just special to witness. And all the more that we have this documented in this way too, that we can look back on that experience that you had, but also another way of celebrating the life of someone that deserves that kind of attention.
Yeah, just such a respected man in the community, and glad that we have this captured of a hour-long conversation, just him diving into his life story, his relationship with Virginia, and the creative things they did together. And yeah, I'm really glad it's been captured.
And there's been other times, not on camera or not in a podcast format, that we've hung out with Frank, that we've got to know maybe some of the stories that weren't shared in this public way. But just to say that he has endless, really fun, exciting, adventurous stories. He just embodies that. He's taken time to explore the world and see it through a different lens and meet all kinds of different people that have informed his work. And he talks about this in the interview, but he always kind of goes back to home. And I think that too is sort of a theme that comes out in his work, and certainly in this conversation.
It's where he's rooted, his foundation. It's what grounds him. That's what home does.
Yeah.
And that's what, Inverness means to him.
Well, we're really proud to share this one, and we know everyone, especially who knows Frank personally, which that means a lot of people will absolutely love this chat and love him even more.
Let's jump right into it. Here's us with Frank MacDonald from his home in Inverness.
Make it. This is cozy. This is actually kind of similar to our setup at our home studio, where typically I would sit with the guest on our couch, and Mike is running the tech across from us. So this feels very at home to us.
Yeah, well, you have a lovely home, Frank, surrounded by the most beautiful artwork you could imagine, music, books. It's a creative household.
It has been, yes. Yeah. It was originally a trailer that I lived in primarily as a bachelor. Then when Virginia McCoy came into my life, we did what we could to turn it into a home.
Yeah, it's a great creative nook in here. I was asking Mike on our drive here if you were raised in Inverness. Is that were your parents from here too?
Yes, I was born here. I was over in Campbell Street. One of the earliest memories I have over there was the building of what is now Neil McIsaacs' house, pouring the foundation for the first of those, what we call the new houses. And I still call the new houses, although they're 40, 50 years old. And that was such a tremendously active street because it was full of kids, and the town itself was full of stories. Because although we couldn't put it into words at the time, most of our parents were veterans who had come home, and so we thought they were old veterans. But some of them were still in their late 20s, early 30s.
That's crazy.
And I think one of the things that they themselves realized was they had lived through a depression. They had gone through a war. And they said, this is not happening to our children. Those, what's called the new houses, those 10 houses were built at a time when the last mine was closing. But it was their way of putting roots down and saying this town is not going anywhere. And people had found a way to stay. Often staying meant parents leaving, or fathers leaving. But leaving the family at home, that had worked out very well. But the
biggest employer of Inverness is Fort McMurray, right?
Yes. Years later, originally it was Sudbury, and then it was Boston, and then
Detroit,
it was Windsor, and then you get out of high school, and the first thing you want to do is leave. And which was a good thing to want to do because there weren't no staying options. And so my first time going away with a couple of friends was to Sudbury. That worked out well for my friends because Inco was hiring like crazy at the mines. And we all went down to get a job. And Wesley Ferguson and Suey McDougall, who were with me, both went in to get tested. And I went in and we had to strip down, step on a scale.
Yeah.
I stepped on a scale and the guy laughed at me. He said, nope, I was 123 pounds and 170 to get in the mines, 140 you could get in the smelters.
123 pound Frank
Didn't-
MacDonald at what, 18 or?
About 19 or 20.
Yeah.
What was the
And-
reason for having to weigh a certain amount? How come you had to be of a certain weight?
Oh, well, one was the weight of the work that you
Okay.
would have to be doing. I think that's their primary reason. Because I realize in retrospect, I probably would have just been in the way down there.
You weren't built to be a miner. That's
No.
okay, Frank.
Yeah,
okay.
and in retrospect, yeah. So put in the winter there, and then we lived according to the Cape Breton calendar, which in my mind has always been from September to June. You were away, you were working. It didn't matter how good your job was, how much you were making.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how many stamps you had or unemployment weeks. But in June, people began quitting their jobs, drawing their back time, and heading to Inverness. And the population here would swell. And it was a wonderful place to be in the summer. And everybody that came home and from various parts of the continent, then either at parties or at the Hoft, you're just trading stories from wherever you were and about characters you traveled with or what have you. And I think that was, in a way, without us being conscious of it, a sustaining what has always been an oral tradition here in Cape Breton Island. You know, our parents told stories. It just went on back generations. The stories would probably be new, but the telling was the important thing. You know, it's just
That migration home that happens in the summer, still happens in the summer, really speaks to a sense of home that most people I know from Inverness really have, this profound love of our town. Why do you think that's so strong and prevalent in Inverness? Because I've been to other towns and it's not as much. They don't have as much pride as we do towards where we grew up.
Yes. What I think is that when the mines opened here, it was a huge boom.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the mine owner was Mackenzie and Mann. They had bought it from the developer.
Yeah.
And they were advertising throughout Europe and North America for miners to get enough men here. But before coal became accessible, it was always known to be here, but hard to get.
And it's still here too.
And it's still there, and it's staying there.
You wrote a book about that. Out under the water.
Yes, but for 150 years before coal or the development of the migration to Cape Breton had been going on for a long time, and settling Western Cape Breton as a place where they weren't necessarily the Scots who were forced out by sheep.
Yeah.
But they were economic refugees and the chance to go somewhere else where no laird and no landowner owned you.
Yeah.
And you could have your own land. And so people moved all along Western Cape Breton. I know this is true all over the country, but speaking for here, and they tended to move in communities. And so people from the different islands, somebody would settle here, talk about the land that was available, get the word back home, more people would join them. And so you have, like, in the Margrees, in Inverness, in Mabo, in Judic, in Port Hood, people who formed communities out of the communities they came from.
Yeah.
And it's still a place, although there aren't 20,000 people in the county, but it's still a place where people identify with the place they live in. Mabu, Inverness.
Yeah.
So these communities were well developed agriculturally by the time that coal began being produced here in Inverness, and the town began to grow.
Yeah.
And migrant miners were coming in from all over. And miners were primarily migrant. But here, this is an unproven theory of mine.
Yeah.
But here, the Belgians, the Irish, the various ethnic groups that came here married into a population that was deeply rooted here. And they're primarily Scottish farmers, Scottish agriculture. And so when the mines began to run into trouble and come to an end, there was an out-migration. There's no doubt about that. But there were a number of those miners who had established a home here and a family here.
Yeah.
And so even if they went off to mine somewhere else, they didn't force their families to leave because there were so many attachments with the community and with the land and with the people. And they learned that they were just part of it. And when you go through the phone book for Inverness, all 2 pages of it or whatever, but you get several ethnic names, but they all feel about this place as home. And so I became aware of it being home when I was very young. And then my father, who worked at the power plant over the river, he got transferred to Trenton, Nova Scotia, where all of these small plants had been closed and consolidated into a huge. When I was moved out of the town, I knew. I was 14. I did not want to leave. All my friends were here. Everything I knew was here. I moved. I spent 2 years in Trenton, grade 8, grade 9. I flunked grade 9. I was a miserable student, and I was an angry kid because of the move. And the day school would close, I would hitchhike back to Inverness for the summer. And after 2 summers, an aunt and uncle asked me if I wanted to stay for the winter, which put me back in school. And I did. And they probably saved my life with that offer. But after school, continued to roam and would go in bunches, or I often went alone, just hitchhiking, looking for something, thinking I wanted to be a writer, but never writing a word.
Reading Kerouac and getting out there.
All of that influences, all of those influences I began to encounter. And it just appealed to me that all of them were searching for something. And that was what was driving them, whether it was across the continent or into Tibet. They were all on some sort of spiritual journey, however we measure individual spiritual journeys. And I just thought what I'd hoped was that I would meet these people, which I never did. And I knew Inverness was home. I knew it was my heart, my spiritual home. But how I was going to get back here, find a means to be here, was a whole other kettle of fish because there was no work. Then when I was 23, I went back to grade 11. I went back to high school. Am I talking too much here?
No, this is how they work.
Excellent, yeah.
But I went back to grade 11 because even though I had graduated from grade 12 a few years in 64, I was a lousy student. I didn't know how to learn, and I knew I needed a stronger grounding if I was going to go to university. Because at 23, I could have gone straight there as a mature student.
Mm.
Instead, I went back to grade 11, and that turned out to be a good thing in that a couple of teachers, and particularly Sissy McCarthy, was teaching us how to learn, how to not just reciting facts and what have you, but, how to take notes. I had no idea then how valuable that would be, but I did get accepted at St. FX out of grade 11 and spent 4 years there for a BA because I didn't get my grade 12 credit. And that was almost every second year. I would leave, and I went down one year, wanted to spend a winter in New Orleans. Just got it in my head. That would be a good place to go. Nobody goes there, and that I knew. And then into Central America, and all the time pretending to be a writer or a poet, or until I went in for a Bachelor of Arts degree. I got a degree the same year the Nova Scotia government laid off 600 teachers in the province. There wasn't a job to be had. There wasn't so back out to Calgary and construction. And while I was out there, my father became terminally ill. I moved back here to take care of him. And the body of this house, he hated living in a trailer, the concept, but he had no choice. He had to get a place quickly. And so we were here, and the Oran had been operating for months or a year at that point, and I was volunteering, and I began writing a column, and then the job opened up at the paper, and so for the next 30-some years, that's primarily what I was doing, was reporter and columnist with the paper. But it gave me time to explore with my own writing and stuff, which I never tackled with any confidence until after I met Virginia. And I won't go into the details, but she made it possible for me to go to the Banff School of Fine Arts. I went out there. I spent 6 weeks, probably the best summer of my life. It was W.O. Mitchell who founded the school. They gave me a typewriter, a stack of paper, a coffee pot, and a key to my own studio. And my only obligation was to write every day, which I did. I had a process called Free Fall, and I began writing out there with the group there was 25 in the class, and discovered through the process, I went from, thinking that I'm an imposter here. These people know what they're doing, and to discovering that I had stories to tell. And I began working. I discovered a story that eventually became A Forest for Calum. And from the time I conceived of it in 1985 till it was published in 2005, 20 years of, I think, spending a lot of time pretending I was writing a novel. And then in 1984, I took a heart attack, and I had to take 4 months off work and live on EI. And I thought, well, if I'm serious about this novel, I better do something about it. So I decided to treat the EI like a Canada Council grant. And I wrote every day. And when it was time to go back to work, I hadn't finished it, but I knew I was going to finish it, and began sending it out to publishers with no, as most writers run into, the rejection letter. Until at Cape Breton University Press, Mike Hunter was the publisher there. When he got my manuscript, he wanted to publish it, and he did. And that was 20 years ago. And that was the beginning of But for stick-to-itness, which it's not really an example because I wasn't very disciplined in sticking to it. But when I got a call from a publisher that they wanted to publish my manuscript, I was 3 days past my 60th birthday. And it happened. And unfortunately, it followed with 3 more novels, a children's novella, a variety of stuff. Virginia and I worked on things together. And so that's how I got here. And this week, there's a...
Well, that's the end of this podcast here. that's all of it.
That was an excellent overview. My
so
goodness.
This week, there'll be a 20th anniversary celebration of the Forester Calum, and Nimbus Publishing has come out with a Canadian Classics new edition of it, and so
incredible. Congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment, and everyone is excited to celebrate you and your work, Frank, and we're excited just to spend more time with you. I first heard about you through Mike and his family, and you're someone I would say that Mike has seen as a mentor, someone he looks up to as an artist. I wonder if there's someone in your life that played that role.
Yes. A couple of people that have been encouraging or influential. And one I have to say is Sextus Fian, whom was encouraging. I think he would have made an excellent writer himself. He taught all his life, but I hope he influenced many, many people. And Alistair MacLeod. We became more friends through the paper than through literary similarities, because there's no common ground between us in terms of writing. But he was so encouraging, and in making recommendations and things like that. Of people I know, I'd say those were the most influential.
Your stories really encapsulate this town, like the essence of what a small town is and the stories that happen in it. When you are writing, are you intentionally trying to capture that? Or are you just writing what you know because this is what you experience and this is what your life is? So you know the people and the nicknames and the little stories and the inside jokes and all that. And is that just what kind of comes out because that's the life you live?
My stories, to a great extent, like using a Forester Calum as an example, is, it's a novel, but it's made up of stories. Many of them are stolen. Many of them are things that have happened to other people, or they're just distilled down into this telling, for which I'm grateful. It has been well received locally
and nationally and globally. You were a finalist for the Dublin Literary Award, which is a prize for the best novel in the world that year. So.
Just that small detail.
But when it comes to it, it's home.
Yeah.
I have one of the stories I tell about the reviews I've received. One of the best reviews that I've ever gotten was in the Old Hoff Tavern, and I went for a leak, and I'm standing at a urinal, staring at the green cinder block in front of me, and a guy I know comes in, and he's standing staring at the same cinder block beside me, And he says to me, he said, I heard you wrote a really good novel. And I said, I don't know. I know he's never going to read it, but it was subject. It was a subject. And that the novel was something to be talked about at the tavern was enough. That was a great review for me.
The setting meant a lot there.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important for people to go off and have a bigger adventure and see different parts of the world to have that real sense of home? I ask that because I find when we go away, it's really exciting and you're being introduced to new cultures and experiences and you come back with all these great stories. But there's also a newfound appreciation for feeling settled at home and being in your own bed and having your own fridge. Yeah, like what kind of weight of importance do you put on that contrast?
I think, speaking only for myself, I think the traveling part of it enhances your awareness of home. And there are some people who have no sense of home.
Right.
But various places that I have been and enjoyed being there, I understood that I'm never staying here.
Mm-hmm.
And that, 10 months from now or 6 months from now, I'm going to be back in Cape Breton Island. And so a lot of my stories inside of the novels are from here, from memories of here, from other people's tales of, I don't footnote who I stole from, but they don't tell me either. And there's a sense of being when I'm home here that I never possessed anywhere else. I've been comfortable elsewhere. I've been, in better economic circumstances elsewhere. But I kept very little journal work or anything, maybe a number of poems when I was traveling. But I was always anxious to see new places. I liked meeting new people. I didn't meet nearly as many people as I would have liked to because I was too shy. And I have never drank, which was kind of its own barrier. Mm-hmm. And I spent 3 months on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And
you saw enough drinking that it basically counts as you having a few.
Basically here, I was either going to, I don't know what brought the decision to not drink. It may have been a confirmation pledge. It may have been just seeing what was wrecking the town and many homes. And it may have been a knowledge of myself that I never articulated, but understood somehow. Mm-hmm. Don't have that first drink. And I never did. And I've been asked, how can you grow up sober in Cape Breton? And, especially considering the people you hung about with, because a lot of, they were heavy drinkers. Mm-hmm. They were brawlers. They were wonderful people. And I traveled with them but nothing helped me stay sober more than they did. Mm-hmm. From the time we were teenagers, you get in a case of beer and go to the Red Bank, play hooky and just drink beer. Spook will get his Pepsi, So from the time I was 13, 14, it was assumed by my friends that I would not drink, and I never drank. Yeah. And I never ran into the offer of a drink from any of them ever. It wasn't until I got to university. And then at parties, people would be, I have one. And so finally I manufactured an allergy to alcohol. I can't do that. Yeah. And then when I get into my 30s, it was a different phase, and I'd be in situations, because I was always in situations where drinking was the primary purpose of being there. They'd ask me, can I get you a beer or can I get you a drink? And I'd say, no, I don't drink. And the look I would get would be understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And the unasked question is, how long you been sober?
Yeah.
You know? So that worked too. You know?
Mm-hmm.
They want to think I've been in AAs for the last 10 years. That's all right. I remember Lewis McIsaac. One time I landed in Boston looking for work, and he and I were rooming together. And one payday, Lewis took me on a tour of bars he drank at,
Yeah.
introducing me to the bartender. I want you to meet a Cape Bretoner who doesn't drink.
That's your claim to fame.
I didn't
They
have
didn't
to buy,
believe it, huh?
I didn't have to buy a Pepsi.
Yeah.
I didn't have to buy. The bartender would just put it there. And but drinking is an element in a lot of my stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's one unpublished novel called Boomer's Town, which is about a town drunk, you know, and and trying to put myself in that space was a challenge, you know, like it's not going to be published, but it's done for me what I needed it to do, you know, and that's all I can ask of any of my writing.
Yeah. Why are stories so important to you and most people from around here? Because you can run into someone who's never read a book, probably never going to write a book, or definitely never going to write a book, and they could tell the funniest stories you would ever imagine. Like, they're funnier than any comedian you'd ever watch on the biggest stage in the world.
Yes.
And there's so many people from here and small towns and Eastern Canada in general where stories and getting into these adventures, and a lot of the time they don't even look very good in these stories themselves.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a love of having these things happen that they can tell to other people. And I guess it's some way to keep their memory alive or just to encapsulate this moment in time. But stories are so important to people from around here.
And they always have been to me. I know to the group I hung around with when we were 11, 12 years old, sleeping in shacks.
Yeah.
And that was a big adventure to do out, you know.
Yeah.
But you'd wind up talking all night. But you're telling stories
Yeah.
about, you know, my father said this, or in the house I grew up in, my mother died when I was very young. My father had a drinking problem, and there was a lot of drinking went on at the house. I used to be embarrassed by it until when I grew up and thought about it. That drinking went on at our house because my father wouldn't leave us alone to go drinking somewhere else, you know.
Yeah.
But the tales that they would tell around there, whether there were war memories or depression stories, and it was just enriching to absorb all of these tales and get to like these guys I didn't like in the beginning because, and most of them were booze drinkers. I mean, they go on a binge and then they go home and they beat up by their wives and they stay sober for 6 months or whatever. But again, I think it is that we are continuing on as a culture that once told these stories in the Gaelic. And now, as the children who did not inherit the language, we still tell stories. And there are stories. I'm at an age now where most of my social life is wakes and funerals. So many of the people I've grown up with have died. And what I realize is that with them die scores or hundreds of stories, either that they told or they were part of or was told about them, because in a very few years, nobody I would be telling stories to, younger people, would remember them. And I think it's important that the characters that you're talking about be known to the people you're telling the story to. And so when someone dies and time moves that person out of the circle, I mean, there's still several people my age, and we can sit around and we can tell stories about ourselves and bring these people back to life for the length of a good drunk or something like that. They are not stories that would be repeated by someone new hearing them, because they wouldn't appreciate the context or the character or whatever is going on. I suppose in writing, I'm trying to capture a bit of that.
Do you feel like that's part of your purpose, is to etch that in stone so they exist for forever?
I don't know. Like in terms of knowing my purpose, I write, and virtually everything I write is out of this community, or my version. Someone asked me, why didn't you write about Inverness? But then you have to be geographically correct all the time. In Sheehan, if I want to church on the beach, I'll move it down to the beach, and now that will do it. But I guess I don't consciously think of a story I'm going to tell, because a lot of the stories are elements in a larger story, the novel I'm writing or what have you, and sometimes they just rise up, and I want to tell the story. I need to tell the story because it's critical to the rest of the story that I'm trying to tell. But also, I'm now writing I'm writing some stories that evoke, unfortunately, a time that's gone. I was fortunate enough to be there for the 60s, the 70s, and have a parent's strong view of the war and the Depression. But right now, what's happening in music, in stories, in culture is a thing that's leaving me behind. And I'm not tuned in to try to keep pace with whatever's going on or what have you. When I say leaving me behind, I'm talking about a generation, although I know half the world thinks there's far too many baby boomers still left in this world. But I guess I will always write out of my life or out of my memories. I don't see myself, if I write about an old person, primarily I'm going to be writing about their past. And because I have no children, I have a lot of nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews, but they're all far away from me. So I'm got no connection really with what's going on. And I don't know if I have an interest beyond understanding the news and things that are going on. I don't see anything I would want to write about. That's your job.
I would say that part of your legacy, Frank, is inspiring people like us, who I would like to say are young people, younger people. I think that's something rare. It's one thing to have a body of work that is tangible, that you can pick up in a library and it lives on. But to inspire the hearts and minds of upcoming artists is a whole other thing altogether. That's something I think that you and Virginia both have provided to not only this community, but Mike and I have often talked about seeing the two of you as kind of our future selves, the relationship that you had and how you collaborated and had that mutual understanding of being creative minds. Not everybody understands what it's like to live in that kind of brain.
Right.
which I'm sure the two of you as a married couple, it had its pros and cons.
Uh-huh.
I'd love to hear about what that relationship was like with Virginia, being married to a fellow artist. Maybe start with how you met and how that part of your relationship evolved.
One winter night in the mid-'70s, late 70s, maybe, I don't remember the year, Pulte McPherson had a restaurant over in what was later the flower shop, and which is now a chiropractic.
Mm-hmm. What was the restaurant called then?
The Klansman.
Klansman?
Yeah,
That
called
sounds
Klansman.
like you shouldn't call a restaurant that. Like,
And
I wouldn't say the 3-letter term. That,
yeah. No, yeah. Depends how you got to spell it out. Eh?
Yeah.
Like I said, nasty night. I was batching. I went over to get a burger and fries at Pulte's. And I was the only customer in. And then these 3 people came in. They were all bundled up. They were all covered with snow, and and I didn't know. I knew one of them was Paul Smith because I didn't know Paul, but I knew him because he was from England and lived in Ontario, but was here a lot, and so I knew him just by sight. And the other man took off. I never saw him before. And then the third person took off their coat and a big toque. And this tumble of hair came down her back. And I realized it was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 3 guys when they came in. And they turned and they sat at a table. And when the woman sat down, I looked and I had the thought, what a beautiful woman.
Mm.
And I mean, nobody noticed me. I just finished eating and I left. And I was thinking about her coming out of all of this winter regalia. And it was like a butterfly out of a cocoon, It was just, and if I never saw her again, I would never have forgotten that moment. Just anyway, I went home and I found out later that, they were living up in the Highlands. And bit by bit we met because they knew families that I knew. And, so as we were soon moving in the same group most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a nodding acquaintance and then, trading stories because Virginia loved telling stories and listening to stories. But she had a partner, and sometime over the next couple of years, they married, and it didn't work out, and they didn't marry. They got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Unmarried.
Unmarried. And over that time, because in the crew we were in, Virginia and I both had the same aspirations for ourselves to develop as artists, so we just kept finding more and more to talk about when we would be together, whether in a group or whatever. And after the divorce, I'm not going to go into the details, but we got together. I didn't know why why we were together, but it was sticking. And she may have been the brightest person I'd ever met. She was talented, and I just waited for her to come to her senses and get on with her life, which fortunately she never did.
Yeah. You kept waiting and waiting.
And so, it was a very slow process in which we became from acquaintances to very good friends, to friends who had something they shared, and then as things fell apart in her life, our relationship grew out of that, and so eventually she moved in here. This picture here
Mm-hmm.
shows her painting right here.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't have a studio. One day I was out in the yard out here. Joey Bush, who lived in the bungalow, he'd been my neighbor since I moved here. And Joey hollered, "Hey, Spook," he said, "I'm moving out to the Glen with Margie. I'm selling this place. You want to buy it?" And I said, "How much do you want for it?" He said, $17,000. So I knew he meant 15. But even at that price, I thought my first fear was who might buy it, who would wind up with its neighbors.
Yeah.
And so I just said, "I'll take it." I didn't bargain for 15,000. And I said, "I'll have to go to the bank Monday." He said, "Good, we'll go to Port Hood Tuesday and get it done." It was one of the fastest real estate deals ever done.
Yeah.
I came in here and Virginia was painting, and I said, "I just bought you a studio." And I didn't realize what was going to happen with that bungalow and all the beauty and joy that came out of it.
So that's where she created most of her work?
Most stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. It gave her a place to be always.
Chills.
And it was, and we co-published TR's Adventure at Angus the Wheelers, and she worked on a couple of collections of columns of mine. And when they're coming out with the 20th anniversary of A Forest for Calum, they used one of Virginia's paintings for the cover. So that was
incredible.
I'm just very happy with that. But she had gotten sick, and it was a long, slow passing. But we had 38 years together, and I don't remember a friction. There must have been, but I've erased them.
Those aren't the things that stay with you, are they?
No.
I'd like to share a story with you, if I may.
Sure.
You very kindly donated many of Virginia's books, art books of inspiration to my art gallery. And we have a little memorial for Virginia there with her photograph and some of her books that other people can come in and enjoy. And among those books was this really beautiful fold out drawing book. So all the pages are blank, and there's some that you would write on, and the other are watercolor pages. So you could paint in this book as well.
Right.
And I was so drawn to it, but I was almost intimidated. I thought, I can't, like, you know what it's like to have a blank canvas. And I thought, well, these are, 50 blank canvases. I just can't wrap my mind around this. I belong to a group of women, and we have done some creative work online together. So myself and my co-collaborator, Steph, who just lives outside of Inverness.
In Tom Ryan's old place.
In Tom Ryan's old place.
Yeah.
We came up with this idea that we call the Sisterhood of the Traveling Book. And this book of Virginia's is traveling across Canada for exactly a year. It started on the first day of summer in 2025. And every 2 weeks, a new artist will contribute to this book and pass it on to the next artist. Sometimes they're able to hand deliver it. Sometimes it has to go in the mail because it's traveling a far distance. And it's going to end up back in Inverness on June 21st, 2026. And so this will be a book that Virginia is her legacy, really, that there are 30-some other young female artists that will fill the pages inspired by her legacy.
Oh, wow. Kristen, thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful.
I can't wait to show it to you when it's finished. Yeah.
Yes. I thought Virginia's work should have gone further. She thought mine should have gone in terms of distribution.
We all think that as artists, don't we?
And but we were both fulfilled by how well our work was accepted in the community in which we lived, and that's where it mattered most.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But the one thing that Virginia wished was that she could make a connection with a gallery in Thunder Bay, because she's originally
Right.
from Thunder Bay, and she's a member of the Fort William band, Ojibwe band, and so she had a lot of cousins and relatives there, and it just, she'd like to show it home.
Yeah.
I just learned in the past month or two that her cousin Selena has been working towards that. And a gallery in Thunder Bay has agreed in September of 2026. They want to they want to hang a full Virginia McCoy show. There's her Becoming White series, which has been floating around or touring around, but they want more than that. They want a good collection of her work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so in 26, that's going to happen. I hope I'm well enough to be there. I'd love to be there for her. But it's going to be a challenge to the gallery because most of Virginia's work's on both coasts.
Yeah.
They're right
Well, they'll meet in the middle.
That's right in the middle.
Yeah. So.
Well, and there's a similar celebration happening for you this week in your community, recognizing A Forest for Calum 20 years, and there's a collective of artists.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, I just received a press release from the same cousin. It comes from a museum in Thunder Bay, and on the same day that the Oran published the press release for my show, this press release announces that because they're a museum, they don't hold a whole show, but they are opening a Virginia McCoy studio. They've dedicated one room. I've shipped boxes of stuff up. They've been gathering stuff about her, like just a studio about this artist from Thunder Bay. And although she says Fort William, she's never accepted the merger. But it was just very coincidental that these two press releases came out on the same day, and a celebration of her art and
that's beautiful.
And mine, so.
Well, Frank, like Kristen said earlier, you've inspired us in so many ways. You and Virginia, you've inspired people across the globe with your writing, and I know you associate as a person from Inverness, but your telling of the stories from here has truly reached a global audience and has. Yeah, I know you don't feel that all the time, but it's something that has reached a lot of people, and it's something you should be really proud of. And you're representing my hometown in a way that encapsulates and really shows who we are, and we're so proud of you for that. So thank you for doing all that you do and being able to tell the stories off us and being able to just be a voice for those people who have the stories who don't get to share them in a larger way. So you've done so much for us on small levels, but also on big levels as well. And it's very appreciated.
Well, thank you very, very much. I don't think you're on a small level, and the level you're on is not not the end of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You people you got too much imagination and things going for you, and then there's always the town heroes.
Yeah. Played a show last night, got home at 2 a.m. So it's a little groggy today.
Yeah.
That was the blueberry jam.
Yes. Yeah. No drinks, so didn't have a drink. I did the Frank MacDonald way. So.
Well, we've only got turkey dinner to go now, huh?
It's a beautiful day here. We get to chat with you, have a turkey dinner. The beautiful fall colors are out. Like, what more could anyone ask for, right? And we brought you a slice of pumpkin pie.
I know, and I'm going to enjoy it.
It's
very
award-winning pumpkin pie. Kristen entered a contest just last week and got a prize for it.
Not for that pie. It's fresher than a week old. But
Yeah.
I've taken up pie
same
baking.
recipe.
Same recipe, exactly. So I hope you enjoy it, Frank. This was truly an honor. I was almost a little shaky coming here today because I just have so much admiration for you, and thank you for taking time to allow us into your home and share your stories. And
You're welcome back anytime, with or without.
Thank you.
We don't need the mics always for this. We'll stop in for a visit anytime we're home now, for sure.
Very good.
Very
well,
good.
I certainly appreciate what you're doing and I'm gonna have to see what this is.
Yeah, you can watch this or listen to it. So we'll send you the links.
Yeah.
When we have a link, because like I said, my whole family is out in Calgary.
Yeah.
All of my direct family, and I want them to see.
Yeah,
I'm this mysterious old uncle on the East Coast.
We'll make sure they get it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
YouTube, you know YouTube,
revealed.
right? Yeah, it'll be on YouTube as well. So
yeah,
that's kind of a gathering spot for everybody knows how to use YouTube. So it's a convenient spot that people can find.
Yes. Look, I know you've had this going on for quite a while.
2 years now, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, I never learned how to tune into them. And people say, "Oh, it's simple. You just do this, this, and this." But I do this, this, and this, and I said, "Oh, well, Midsummer Murders is on. I might as well watch that."
We'll show you afterwards. Yeah, we'll stop the mics and we'll give you the lowdown.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way.
Yeah. Great.
Well, thanks again, Frank. Congrats on the 20 years of Forest for Calum. We'll pick up a copy of the new edition ourselves to add to the old one. So I got a signed old one. I got to get a signed new one, too. So.
See how much your signature's changed.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Frank. And we will see everyone next week. Make It with Mike and Kristen is recorded and produced by Michael S. Ryan at Hot Jupiter Sounds.
Intro and outro music by me as well.
Cover art by Emily Rankin at Take Note Graphic Design and photography by Candace Moore.
If you cool cats want to help us out, the best way to spread the word is by telling a friend about us. Tell your mom, tell all your buds. Word of mouth is still the best way to reach people. It's free for you and helps us immensely. And if you're into it, you can like and subscribe and all that stuff too.
Another way to support us is through our Patreon. We have a number of super fun tiers and perks like bonus content, handwritten postcards, creative coaching, and so much more. Find us at patreon.com/Mike and Kristen.
For the makers, the dreamers, and the figuring it outers, have fun trying to make it out there, friends.